So here's a question I've been thinking about lately. Are we actually drifting towards fascism, or are people just throwing that word around because it sounds scary? Because the word fascism gets used a lot, I wanted to actually take a look at the principles of fascism and see where we stand.
Fascism is a cult of the leader who promises national restoration in the face of supposed humiliation by immigrants, leftists, liberals, minorities, homosexuals, women, in the face of what the fascist leader says is a takeover of the country's media, cultural institutions, schools by these forces.
Historically, fascism has a set of patterns. It's not just about vibes. So, what I want to accomplish is pretty simple. I want to take a look at those patterns and the principles that highlight fascism and see where I think we've met the mark. Ultimately, you're going to have to decide on, what you believe. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to ask ourselves a hard question. Are we already there? One of the first signs historians point out is the strongman leader idea. The idea that the nation needs one powerful leader who represents the real people. In fascist movements, the leader becomes more than a politician. He becomes the embodiment of the nation itself. And look, ask yourself something honestly. When loyalty to a person becomes more important than loyalty to the Constitution, what does that start to look like? Would you say our current leader meets that criteria? Even if he doesn't say it, how do his supporters see him? Fascist movements always need enemies. Historically, those enemies were communists, Jews, intellectuals, journalists, etc. Because here's the thing. If your political opponents aren't just wrong, but they're evil, subhuman, or traitors, then suddenly democracy stops making sense. Because why would you share power with enemies of the nation? I ask again, does any of this sound familiar? How many people and organizations have become demonized so far? Have we met the mark? Fascist systems don't usually start by abolishing democracy overnight. They erode it slowly. Democracies die when people stop believing elections matter. Claims elections are illegitimate without evidence, pressure on election officials. I shouldn't really have to make this case here, but not only do we witness it and still re-elect the person responsible, they're already preparing narratives to make voters question the legitimacy of the midterms. Fascism pushes extreme nationalism, not just patriotism, but the idea that the nation must dominate an outsider threat. Anything that threatens purity. There's a difference between loving your country and believing only certain people count as real citizens. One of the first initiatives of this term was immigration and border security. I won't spend a lot of time trying to convince you what's right and wrong about how we've gone about that. Remember, this video is about fascism. So what? Are we 4 for 4? Fascist movements tend to celebrate violence as cleansing or patriotic. Historically, that meant paramilitary groups. Today, we see rhetoric that excuses or encourages political violence. When violence becomes acceptable in politics, democracy is already in serious trouble. I'd go as far as to say, not only are we becoming a nation that glorifies violence, we encourage it. We monetize it. We use it to garnish views and attention. Ultimately, violence has become an additional mechanism to gain political capital. Say what you will about our president, he knows how to sell and where to go to meet his people where they are. I think this also gives him the illusion that most people are his people, an illusion that has been shattered a few times. Another pattern historians talk about is propaganda replacing truth. Once truth stops mattering, whoever controls the loudest microphone controls reality. This part is where my conspiracy brain kind of takes over to some extent, so follow me for a second. Who controls all social media, and where do they stand with the president? Are they for him or against him? What about mainstream news? Who owns them? Where do they stand? Also, let's not shy away from the fact that depending on your algorithm, you can have completely separate views or versions of reality. Now we've arrived at the uncomfortable part. You may not agree with the argument as I've laid everything out. You might say, hey, most of that was a reach. If anything, we're at 3 out of 6 or 4 out of 6. But let me ask you this. If I go into Burger King and I get a Whopper, I tell them to take the pickles off of the Whopper. Does it become a different sandwich? What about if I take the pickles and the onions off of it? Still the same? Matter of fact, let me know in the comments, how many ingredients do you have to take off of the Whopper before it comes a whole different sandwich? See, regardless of analogy or the argument that I've made, we have to ask ourselves, are we moving towards fascism or away from it? Because if history tells us anything, by the time we realize that we're in a fascistic state, it's too late. But y'all let me know. Let me know in the comments. Once again, new YouTuber, so let me know in the comments what y'all think, if y'all feeling the content. Like, comment, subscribe.
Hype me up. Hype me up.
And until next time, I'll holla at you.